Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting Alpha X Pro replay cast, bringing you the best games of yesterday, today. Now, we are going to be heading into TSL number 6 as spawning down here in the bottom position. We have Rogue. And his opponent here in the top, he is BYUN. So two back-to-back WCS BlizzCon winners, and by that I mean they did win it back-to-back. BYUN won 2016, Rogue took it in 2017. So two real champions, and honestly, they are the kind of players that you really do look for to go very far in the various tournaments that they do play. Obviously, out of the two, I think Rogue has had some of the harsher, rough patches in terms of his play, just because we have seen certain periods where he's kind of fallen off in terms of how he does in them, but honestly, he always does kind of pick himself up and goes on to win vast amounts of tournaments after those little slumps. Now, BYUN, he's one of those players. He has had his little rough patches as well, and one of his biggest rough patch is actually his injury that has been kind of hurting him since he's returned from service. It's one that he's had for a couple of years now, so hopefully we don't see any indication of that, as he still is a very solid micro player. He plays and he lives for the early to mid game, where he can just kind of be very aggressive and trying to win the game that way. So we'll have to see how it goes for him here. Already we have the first little engagement. One of those lings getting pretty darn low, but good micro. Gonna save a good chunk of them before the queen gets out. Now, obviously, the best target for the first Reaper is going after the Creep Tumor, so Rogue's just going to keep that back. I think Creep is really the name of the game versus an aggressive Terran, because that extra warning that you get from the Purple Carpet is just super important to know when these very crisp, refreshing timings are coming out towards you. Now, BYUN does see that there is no third base. He's got to come down here to the low ground to get a scout off that. And he does see it, so he knows nothing too crazy is going to be going on to start things off. But on BYUN's side of the map, it looks like we're going to be going for what looks to be a pretty darn good Hellbat timing. Alright, so with this, you really do have to hit a crisp timing. I don't think Rogue has gone in, so he has no information on this. That makes it a little bit scarier, especially the fact that he's kind of droning up right now. He doesn't really have that many fighting units on the field, and really, it's just going to be a dicey position for him here. He's going to have to rely on his exorbitant amount of queens in order to deal with this. But here we go. The medevac does drop in. The Marines are going to be kind of stepping back. He wants to stay off the creep until those Hellbats morph, and now that they are, he's just going to start to push his way forward. Already the Lings starting to get cleaned up, but the Queens are still in the back, banking up that transfuse energy. If they can get on top of the medevac and keep that away, this push is going to lose its potency. But right now, we do see the higher energy Queens being targeted down, and as they start to run out of energy, they will start to fall. Unfortunately, though, BYUN, he's done quite a bit of work to the army, but he hasn't been able to touch the mineral line. So he will have to retreat out of here with what's left. And, I mean, a pretty decent hold there from Rogue. Obviously, you don't want to lose too many of those queens, but he still has 5 that he can use, so not the worst position for him at all. And now he can just throw down those Evo Chambers and kind of just get his upgrade game going really hard, because BYUN has slowed down any sort of upgrades that he can get for his bio, which, by the way, he is going for, as we have Stim on the way. Hellions gonna just try and dive on in. They get a couple of workers here, but the Banshee is one of the bigger stories. Already an additional 3 going down. Will be able to back out of there with all of its energy. It does have Cloak, so that's gonna be a pretty good tool to kind of punish Rogue if he decides to move out with those queens. But, you know, now things have kind of standardized out a little bit. It's going to be a little bit slower here from BYUN, as he does need to kind of repower up and kind of get that army production pretty hard here in order to kind of keep up with Rogue, who's just going for that explosive economic opening. Not opening, but follow-up here. You see the Hellbat's going to be moving in as the Banshees kind of trying to draw away the Queens. Now the Lings are kind of hanging out here on the natural. He's not as worried about this position because there aren't really that many drones there, so he just wants to kind of defend his actual economy rather than worry about the fourth. But already BYUN is starting to get some pretty good damage done here. 9 additional workers. Those will have to be remade. If he can get out of here with the Banshee, that would be fantastic as well. And yeah, BYUN just really utilizing his tools effectively in order to kind of just make Rogue uncomfortable. Now Rogue also going to get caught here with this little bit of a Ling run by. The Stim bio is moving out on the map. We do see the Hellions rushing around as well, kind of just to prevent any sort of flanks on this army. And again, keep in mind that Rogue is up in terms of those upgrades. He's already started his +2, +1 for BYUN, almost complete, but still not really in time to help him in that fight. Completed at the very last second there. But now, this is kind of BYUN's thing. He loves to kind of just reinforce these positions and go for these attacks, kind of keep the pressure on as much as possible. But BYUN, not paying attention, loses a good chunk of his bio to the Banelings. What a fantastic move there by Rogue. That has stopped all forward momentum from BYUN, who is now going to have to play from a little bit behind here. The reason I say it's a little bit behind, taking a look at that supply, he's currently down in that regard. Again, the upgrades so much quicker. And now Rogue has really just bought himself a lot of room to breathe. Even with this next attack coming in, it's not as powerful as it necessarily could be. So now as he goes on to creep, Rogue has a little bit of a room to kind of make this work. Going to detonate a couple of those Banelings on top of the Hellbats, but wants to get those juicy bio shots. The Widowmine's actually doing quite a bit of work on the bio themselves. And I mean, from here, Rogue has not only held, but he can go on a pretty solid counterattack. Alright, so here we go. He gets the wraparound on the army. The Widowmines finally do start to drop, but now he's kind of just baiting them on top of the bio, getting some good damage done. And this is really tricky for BYUN to deal with here. He's got some good choke points, and the Widowmines are helping him. But already 12 workers going down, additional about to pop. On the other side of the map, small little drop with a couple of Hellbats trying to do as much damage as he's taken. But now with the Hydralisks in position, there's not a lot of healing energy left, and he will be forced back. So this is really the worst case scenario for BYUN right now. we do see a couple Widow Mines kind of just hanging out here. That's pretty funny to see. There you go. He did not repair his third base, so he's just going to try and jump over the fourth. And this is kind of the GG timing push here. He doesn't want to tap out just yet. He wants to try and get something done. But with what Rogue has, I don't think it's going to be very easy for him. We'll have to see. Lurker's Bird at the top of the ramp, and the Banelings in position for the flank. So here we go. Cleaning up a lot of the creep, but all of this is really just buying time for Rogue to position himself even better. First couple of bio shots go down. Gets a good chunk of them, and we see another huge run by coming in, just trying to clean up what's left of the economy at that third. And now BYUN fully on the retreat. Rogue almost maxed out. We should probably be seeing the tap out here, but BYUN does like to fight until the very last unit. I just unfortunately don't think there's really that much more he can do with this position that he's in. And yeah, there you have it, Rogue taking game number 1. Stick around, guys. More StarCraft action to come in game number 2. And now spawning in game number 2. Down here in the bottom position, he is Rogue. And up here in the top, he is BYUN. Rogue really showing up in that first game, able to swiftly and decisively shut down the more aggressive Terran player here. So we will have to see how BYUN is going to react to that. A lot of the times, this is a best of 5 series. So basically, that does give BYUN a little bit more room to kind of work around, breathe, maybe try out new builds just to try and kind of switch it up to see what Rogue's weaknesses are. He's kind of just testing him out in that first game with that Hellbat timing. And now he's going to have to try again. So right now, already going to be mixing it up a little bit here. We do see that SCV going for what is potentially just a scout. He skipped the Reaper to go straight into reactor timing. So let us see where he goes with this. This is a very kind of aggressive move because it will allow him to kind of build up his army composition pretty darn quickly. And yeah, not much else to say about that. Rogue probably should get a scout on this as well. I think that was kind of the weak point of his game last time, is that he didn't get that early game scout. He didn't really go in to see the armory either, and so he had to kind of just rely on those queens when he could have had a couple of additional lings without really hurting his build. Now this is a 2-1-1, obviously. One of BYUN's signature moves. Even if Innovation made it, BYUN perfected it. So this is one that, again, you kind of need to scout to see. It can be very difficult because queens, while they are pretty tanky in the early game, stim bio hits so quickly that you really haven't built up a good number of them in order to stay safe. And especially important, you do need to get some sort of kind of defense tack out. So either Banelings or Roaches to kind of stave this off. So, you know, Rogue right now he is going to go for the Roach Warren. He's probably has seen something. So far, he hasn't really gone for any scouting. So, honestly, this is a pretty good blind counter, I'd imagine. I mean, from here, you know, BYUN's just kind of getting the power up. He's got to wait for 60 Marines and the medevac. Usually he does like to kind of just start walking across the map before the medevacs are done and kind of just have them meet up so that he can hit a little bit quicker. And that's one of BYUN's strong points, is he's very good at hitting these timings when his opponent just is not ready. So, yeah, that's how this game is going. Now back at home, Rogue does have 6 and 7 roaches going to be on the way. So this isn't going to be the worst thing for him to deal with. He just needs to be in position, and he's already gotten a pretty good scout of the units coming across the map. Now the thing about roaches is they don't really scale super well into the later stages of the game. They should primarily just be used for the defense right now and then transition into either back into Baneling, which you can go into Hydralisks, Mutalisks. It all depends on your current playstyle here. And actually right now, BYUN just going to focus fire down all of these roaches. The Queen's going to start to fall as well. The Bio taking some hits, and they're starting to get dwindled down with the stims, but still forcing Rogue to remake a ton of roaches. That's going to slow down his economy just a little bit here, and we may even get some drone kills before all is said and done. So far, though, Defender's advantage going to work in Rogue's favor, and he will force this back, but not without some heavy army losses. So now, once again, BYUN just going to be moving out, getting a little bit more of a position. The one thing about the 2-1-1 is that you do need to kind of stay out on the map, stay aggressive for a little bit, just so that you can, buy yourself some breathing room to kind of catch back up on some of the other things that you need, because we do see that he's going for the command center. He's adding on the additional racks to kind of bring himself back up. And luckily for him, Rogue has not gone for the Evo Chambers just yet, only just now starting 1-1. So now the upgrades are going to be relatively even. Alright, so once again, he's going to be coming in here, cleaning up some of that creep, a little bit of a double prong as well, going to be helping out on that front. I guess he's waiting for his scan here. But that's pretty much just a little bit of a bait as well. Some juicy, juicy Marines for the roaches to jump on. And so from here, it's really just going to be these small drop positions for a while as he powers up. And all Rogue has to do is kind of hold on. As we do see, he's going to be going for a little bit of a faster hive off the back of these roaches. All right. So now the big question is, when is BYUN's next move out? Obviously, I keep saying it, I keep harping on it, but you, as a Terran player, you really don't want to just be a one and done kind of attack. You must always have a little bit of pressure getting ready to move across the map. It doesn't really need to be all at once, all at the same time, but you do kind of need to kind of stagger out some sort of attack so that you're always on the other side of the map, exuding that map presence, getting some trades versus the Zerg player as well, so just forcing them to remake those units instead of economy. I think that's one of the important things that BYUN usually does very, very well, but now he's kind of just waiting to, I guess, hit a much more committed timing, but the window for that can be pretty small. Medevac is literally just trying to keep as many roaches away from the main army as possible. Little mind game with it as well, which is pretty fun to see. And yeah, here we go. BYUN not completely maxed out, but about as close as he'll need to be. Scans up the ramp just to make sure that the roaches don't catch him by surprise, and he is going to retreat here. Kind of interesting. I guess he's kind of just trying to bait this army off of the creep in order to make it a bit of a better fight, but the slow siege up, we'll have to see if it works for him here, as he's going to dive right on top of the roaches. Siege tanks in the back going to wail away, get a little bit of damage done, but now it comes down to the Vipers are coming out. We've got the Lurker upgrades as well. Hydralisk's on the way. So the slower you kind of siege up and work your way across the map, the more time that Rogue is going to have to kind of transition into the perfect late game army to deal with this. BYUN, though, is not going to give up this position. He is just going to slowly inch his way forward in order to see what he can get done before that happens. Good spread on the siege tanks. Just going to make sure that they don't fall to Biles or Blinding Cloud. But here we go, diving right on top once again. Going to trade out some of the bio for more roaches. And he does earn himself another position forward, just leapfrogging forward. He gets one of the siege tanks. Okay, good yoink right there. Now, funnily enough, the siege tanks are getting a couple of shots off before they die. We do see the drop going to be going into the other base as well. These overlords in a really risky position here. But yeah, not the best yoink there, because it did still get a pretty solid hit. There's not really that many lurkers in this position either. It looks like he got cleaned up on that side, but it doesn't even really matter for him right now. He doesn't have a scan, so the Lurker's just going to get on top and clean up a lot of his army, but there just might barely be enough here for BYUN. The reinforcements going to be coming across, and that's going to be it. Looked dicey there for a second, but BYUN taking game number 2 with the tied series. See you all in game number 3. And so with a tied series and everything still left to play for, we're going to be hopping into Pillars of Gold for our 3rd map of the day. So without further ado, spawning down here in the top position, because it's a top-down game, he is Rogue. And his opponent down here in the bottom position, he is BYUN. Alright, so this is the kind of point in the series where there's a little bit more at stake. Obviously, the person who wins this will only have to win one more, while the opponent will have to win the next 2 in order to take the series. So this is where it gets a little bit crazy for some of these players. We do have the ones who obviously love to kind of go for those risky builds to try and force their way forward, but then there's also the ones who just like to play it safe, hide the builds for later on, and don't really want to go too crazy. Like, so far we're not seeing anything too bad out of these guys either. We do have the spawning pool regular time. BYUN going to be skipping the first Reaper as well. Looks like he's kind of rallying across the map. That's kind of interesting. We'll have to see what he's going to be doing with that. Yeah, okay, he's just going to keep it at home. I thought that was a really weird little rally, unless you were going to throw down a bunker somewhere on the ramp to kind of trick Rogue into thinking it was some sort of all-in. Now, off the back of this, there are a couple different roads that BYUN can go for. Obviously, it looks like he's going to be going for Hellions once again, and honestly, in a lot of different matchups, he does like to go for Hellions on this map, because you can get into the third base, jump between, and the two third bases are relatively open for harassment. And so that's kind of what he's just deciding to do here. But, you know, the fact that the Marine is rallying like this tells me a little bit of a story that he's trying to hide something. Because usually you do kind of keep the Marine out front to stop any sort of link pressure. But with this, it is clearly for Overlord vision denial. Now we got the Hellion and we've got the Marines on the way as well. So this looks to be potentially another Hellbat timing. Maybe a little bit less committed, as we do see he's primarily going for Marines, but this can still be a very powerful opening here, just using the Hellions to harass another base while also sending a drop to the main. This is really a scary thing because it hits so quickly, and Rogue, he's pretty much just droning up behind this. He doesn't really have an army other than a couple of queens and 3 lings, which are out on the map. Alright, a good scout, though, is going to reveal a lot of this. Rogue is just going to be hammering down the Z key. Tons of lings moving across the map. And now the Hellions, they kind of sense something is up, so they are going to head on home. He should try and finish up the wall just to keep himself safe. And yeah, it looks like he's just going to fly around with this medevac and look for some damage. Instead, just going to go home since he doesn't feel like he can push in here. Ooh. So basically what BYUN is doing right now, with the additional army, with the Hellions, this is a much more, let's say, committed Hellbat timing. It hits a little bit later, but it does mean you have more Marines, more DPS in those Banshees, and it's just so hard to hold when all you have is Zerglings and your queens are pretty divided out. Alright, so here we go. Rogue, off the back of this, is going to try and push his way into the natural, but so far he is getting cleaned up. The Lings have all fallen right now. Looks like Banshee is going to be able to just be at home for the defense. Cloak going to keep it invisible as well. Spore Crawler is right on top, and now he can actually hit the drone line with this. Can BYUN. So far, a good pull, but that does mean that those drones are not mining, so they are not going to be helping pay for this defense. The Queens starting to fall in great numbers as well. We did see the Banshee come in here to get a couple of kills. And that is how BYUN moves his way up to match point. We will see you guys in game number 4. This man might be down on his last leg in this series, but he is certainly not out. Make sure you ship your energy straight to Rogue Town. And over here, get your tickets ready because we do have the BYUN Express. So, honestly, we have seen how this series is going. BYUN aggressive, Rogue not really getting a scout off of a lot of these builds. So, unfortunately, he's kind of just falling behind in that regard. Um, these attacks, while he does get some little semblance, for example, he does have his links out on the map to kind of catch some of these smaller move outs, he's just not getting the full picture as he would with an Overlord heading in and getting the full scout off. So I think that's one thing that he really needs to kind of build on, get a little bit more information. He's got some good, he's got some good vision when out on the map, but he just doesn't have knowledge of what his opponent's doing. And as for BYUN, these attacks are pretty crisp, but no, this as we saw in game number what name no, excuse me, English is only my first language and the only one I speak. But you know, they couldn't get blocked pretty easily. We did see game number 1, he got shut down pretty hard. So far, though, playing it pretty darn normal here as he's getting the Reaper to kind of dance around, be a little bit more of a nuisance. And I mean, Romanticide. Obviously, this is an attacker's map. This is a siege map. Because you have so many different little locations where you can kind of park your siege tanks, like over here on the ramp. You've got the obvious mineral line right there that you really should kind of get rid of as the Zerg player. And really, it's just good to mitigate surface area, and that's really what you want when you're fighting a very Ling-heavy army. Now, I like this. BYUN is kind of mixing it up for this map. He's got the third CC coming on down, so he's going to be able to get up to that very powerful 3-base Terran. If you remember Husky back in the day, he used to call it the Terran War Machine, and I certainly agree with that because that's really when your production is kind of at its peak for the Terran player because it's on par with the Zerg production on 4 or 5 bases. All right, so getting a pretty decent stim timing. He still has still no starport, so no Manavax. Again, he's going to be going for an aggressive attack here with the Hellions, with the additional Marines, the 2-1-1, fully functional. But at the same time, this kind of build is on a timer, and the timer is really that stim cooldown. Every single time you stim, you're not going to be able to heal your units, so they're just going to get weaker and weaker. So that's kind of just the point where Rogue needs to kind of hold out on for this build. Luckily, though, he is making some good moves. Going to get the double Evo chamber. The upgrades are going to be started, so they will be much quicker than BYUN, who really is kind of sacrificing his upgrade timings in order to make this work effectively. But yep, Rogue right now just kind of have to find that little thin line between getting enough lings and getting enough drones so that even if you take a little bit of damage, you're not really having to remake too much here. He's got the Baneling Nest. He's got plenty of queens. I think he should be. I think he honestly should be pretty all right versus this. Yeah, there you go. Full link production has started. Alright, Hellbats have begun. The Morph. The Banelings aren't done just yet. There's a little bit of energy on these queens. Transfuse a little bit too early there. So he will start to lose a couple of them as they get segmented off. BYUN going straight for the mineral line. The Hellbats trying to tank as many of these Banelings as possible, but the Medevac will get on out of there with a good chunk of the Marines. 12 workers going down. And now this is when BYUN smells blood in the water. He is moving in with his reinforcements. Just a steady stream as the Banelings slowly waddle their way around, looking for damage to deal. And honestly, BYUN wants to trade out those Hellbats for Banelings. Enough Banelings to take down a Hellbat means there's less to deal with the Marines. And now, BYUN, while he did get cleaned up, he's still got massive amounts of damage done, so he can keep the pressure on. After this little bit of counter pressure from Rogue, he realizes that he can't break through that wall, so he's just going to retreat, try and get his 4th base down, and sort of just recover from here. Off the back of this as well, we do have the Zerg Dark Shrine coming in. He's got Burrow on the way. So maybe going to try and get some little cheeky Baneling landmines like he did in game number 1. I think that would be very good for him if he can get a connection like that. Just slow down the pressure. Because, as I've said, once BYUN gets forward momentum, he is like a train. He really doesn't like to slow down. He wants to keep that parade push coming across the map and really just force you into a very uncomfortable position. Not really going to be able to find an angle here. He's got one medevac full of units, going to be going towards the 4th. Rogue does have enough to kind of force this back for the meantime, just forcing the liftoff. But yeah, BYUN kind of just poking and prodding while getting his main army ready to go for the next big push. Decent start to this fight for BYUN. He's starting to take a supply advantage. The wraparound is on the way, however, so he will have to sacrifice the siege tanks. Bear in mind, though, he is having another very committed effort over here, so the Ling is completely out of position to deal with this. Now going to get on top of it and clean it up, but there's still so much damage potential here for BYUN, and he is just going to keep this 1-2 punch going. I don't know if Rogue really has an army big enough to defend both locations. And we'll have to see as he is running into the minefield once again, smartly not sending his whole army. He needs to be careful of that. Does get a couple of good Baneling connections there, but the lift up is going to save a good chunk of these units. And now BYUN starting to work his way through the Lings on this side. He's coming in with what little he has left here. One little Ling. Gonna catch the move out. But, you know, Rogue is still struggling a little bit to clean this up. If he can get up to Hive Tech, if he can get that Lurker production really in full swing, though, that is going to be his saving grace. Okay, Riddle Mine Connection there, gonna get 5 kills. This one has 11 so far from the previous engagement. BYUN almost maxed out once again. But most of his army is at home, just kind of banking up. And yeah, here we go. The Hydralisks are out. Lurker Den just about to be complete. So if Ro can hold on for just a little bit longer, he's going to be in a much better defensive position. Lurkers have burrowed, and they're going to start to chew their way through this army. The wraparound is more than enough as well. The huge Widowmine connections, though, gonna save this push. And Ro8 just took a huge dip in supply right there. He is really relying on these Lurkers to save him. The question is there enough of them? As now BYUN can kind of just rotate around. He doesn't ever have to fight them, essentially. He can just pick up and go wherever the hell they aren't. Yeah, look at that. Nothing defending the third base. I think BYUN, slowly but surely, is just starting to whittle down Rogue. And I don't think there's much left in the tank for our Blue Zerg friend. As he loses the 5th base, as he loses even more in the 3rd. The natural, all the Lurkers are starting to fall. No focus fire required. And as Rogue dips below 100 supply, GG is called. BYUN takes the series, and he moves on to the next round. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you want more Epic Alpha X replays, just hit like, favorite, and subscribe, and we will see you guys at the next big event.